Hello, everybody. It's Dr. Johnson again, and I'm going to talk a little bit about mindset today. And so we want to maximize that as well as we want to maximize any of the other health components that we talk about. But the mindset really is the most important essential because it's the hierarchy of what else we do in life, literally everything else that we do. But before we get into the mindset, let me talk just a little bit about the 5 essentials that we're always going to be talking about in the office. And so the core, number 1 here is the core of chiropractic. And ultimately, the core of chiropractic is not simply because I'm a chiropractor, but the core of chiropractic is really about taking care of the spine because it helps to take care of the nervous system. And the nervous system is the system that literally connects to every single part of your body. It's literally wiring for your body, like wiring for your car. If you have a wiring problem, that part doesn't work. If you have a wiring problem in your house, then that part doesn't work, at least not the way that it should. And so in the same way, the panel in our bodies, just like the circuit breaker panel, the circuit panel in your house, if you overload the circuit due to the stresses of house, then you need to flip the switch. You need to turn that power back on and then try not to be tripping that switch by overloading the circuit. In the same way, the switch that gets tripped often in our lives is in the spine. The different vertebrae are the different breaker switches that connect to the different parts of our body. And so ultimately, if we have stresses of many kinds, which we do, whether that be mental and emotional stresses, whether that be chemical stresses, or whether that be physical ergonomic type stresses, those things can trip the switches in different sections of our body. And then we simply need to turn the power back on to make sure that the function can happen. But then, of course, the body is dynamic, and we need to stretch and retrain and re-strengthen muscles and things around it to keep the switches from being tripped so easily. But then we need to talk about nutrition, because ultimately what you eat is your building blocks of life. It's very much like Legos. You know, you need to have all the right Legos if you're going to build the battleship or whatever your Lego set is. You need to have all of the pieces. You need to have the right pieces. You need none of the wrong pieces. You don't need to stick a Cheeto in there instead of the appropriate block. And then your DNA in your body is literally the blueprint that you work from, the instruction manual to be able to build the appropriate structure and go through all the steps to build your battleship. So the DNA literally has all of those structural components or proteins that build the different parts of your body. But you also need this important understanding of an intelligence that God gave your body that literally runs all of this orchestration. So there's an intelligence behind these things. And that's really the principle of chiropractic, is understanding that we have this innate intelligence that is always at work, always healing, and always optimal, but we need to not interfere with it. So we don't want to interfere it in the nerve system, and we don't want to interfere with it by simply not giving it the right nutrients or putting junk in there that's just going to get in the way. And then our mindset, of course, which we'll go through a lot today. And then we have oxygen and exercise. So the prevailing joke is, how many of your cells need oxygen? Well, all of them. And so we need to be breathing, and we need to be making sure that our body is constantly getting air in, which means we don't want breathing restrictions, for example, covering our face, or we also want to make sure that we're adequately stressing that system with some physical activity to make sure that we're breathing more, breathing harder, breathing often, and we retrain our cardiovascular system with some exercise. And that's the metabolic component, but there's also the functional movement component to be able to do the physical capacity things in life. And then, of course, we want to minimize toxins, and that can be literally anything in food, in drug, or environment. And so we want to be very aware of all of those things in modern society because they are darn everywhere. But let's get into the mindset. And so humans basically have 6 basic needs when it comes to mindset and psychology. And so we have this need for certainty. We have this need for uncertainty or variety. We have this need of significance. We have this need of connection or love. We have this need of growth. And we also have this need of contribution. So I've got a short video that will help to kind of summarize it quicker and more succinctly than I can.
Why do human beings do the things they do? How is it that one person will sacrifice his own life for another, while another will murder a stranger for sheer pleasure? What's the force that drives and shapes all of our emotions, actions, qualities of life, and ultimately, our destinies? While each human being is unique, we also share nervous systems that function in the same way. There are also 6 fundamental needs that everyone has in common, and all behavior is simply an attempt to meet those 6 needs. Number 1. Certainty. It's our need to feel in control and to know what's coming next so we can feel secure. It's the need for basic comfort, the need to avoid pain and stress, and also to create pleasure. The higher the need for certainty, the less risk you'll be willing to take or emotionally bear. Number 2. Uncertainty. Let me ask you a question. Do you like surprises? If you answered yes, you're kidding yourself. You like the surprises you want. The ones you don't want, you call problems. But you still need them to put some muscle in your life. You can't grow muscle or character unless you have something to push back against. Number 3. Significance. We all need to feel important, special, unique, or needed. Some people will pursue this need by competing with others, or by destroying and tearing down those around them. Others may try to fulfill this need by achieving big goals like earning millions or distinguishing themselves with a PhD, or through connection with other human beings. Number 4. Love and connection. The 4th basic need is love and connection. Love is the oxygen of life. It's what we all want and need most. When we love completely, we feel alive. But when we lose love, the pain is so great that most people settle on connection, the crumbs of love. You can get that sense of connection or love through intimacy, or friendship, or walking in nature, or maybe getting a pet. These first 4 needs are what I call the needs of the personality. We all find ways to meet these, whether by working harder, coming up with a big problem, or creating stories to rationalize them. The last 2 are the needs of the spirit. These are more rare. Not everyone meets these. When these needs are met, we truly feel fulfilled. Number 5. Growth. If you're not growing, you're dying. If a relationship is not growing, if a business is not growing, if you're not growing, it doesn't matter how much money you have in the bank, how many friends you have, how many people love you, you're not going to experience real fulfillment. And the reason we grow, I believe, is so we have something of value to give. Number 6. Contribution. Corny as it may sound, the secret to living is giving. Life's not about me, it's about we. Think about it. What's the first thing you do when you get good or exciting news? You call someone you love and share it. Sharing enhances everything you experience. Life is really about creating meaning, and meaning does not come from what you get. It comes from what you give. Ultimately, it's not what you get that will make you happy long term, but rather who you become and what you contribute will. Understanding these needs, and which ones you're trying to meet in any given moment, can help you create new patterns that lead to lasting fulfillment.
So I'll just kind of review these really quick. There's the basic needs that we have of certainty, which is our comfort, uncertainty, which is our variety, and we can fill that with all kinds of spice of life kinds of things. We can fill our significance with a variety of unhealthy things as well as healthy, but we can fulfill it in an unhealthy way with violence, or we could seek to find money or spirituality. Obviously, those can go well. Or we can just be more significant by getting more tattoos, by utilizing guns in violent form or things like that. There's all kinds of different ways that we could go about it in various levels of healthiness. And then we've got our connections. And then ultimately, love can be scary, so connection is often what many people settle for. Another interesting thing is that connection is often the anti-addiction. So the needs of the spirit, the growth, and the contribution are certainly wonderful things to chase after. But often we kind of get stuck in the basics. If we're just not certain that the most basic things are going to be met, then we're going to get stuck in those things. But ultimately, everybody has these things to touch on. So if you find yourself doing something, it's ultimately to fulfill one or more of these things. And so with that, let's kind of move on to this thought. This is from Stephen Covey. This is from 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. He said, sow a thought, reap an action. Sow an action, reap a habit. So a habit, reap a character. So a character, reap a destiny. One way to think of it is that we have thoughts. And so whatever our thought is and the meaning we have associated with that particular thought drives an emotion. And the emotion is basically the gas or the fuel that gives us the power to take a particular action. And so it can be a negative emotion, it could be a positive emotion, but that emotion gives us the fuel to take that action. And then actions on repeat create our habits. And then our habits are ultimately summed up into our character, and our character creates our destiny. And so one of the things that we can think about is this is basically like a cycle. Okay, and this works for positive and negative. But our beliefs and thoughts, with the meaning that we have associated with them, create the feelings, and those feelings drive our actions, and then our actions ultimately drive the results, and those results can ultimately lead to a new belief or a new thought, or reiterate the same beliefs or the same thoughts, and it creates a cycle or a spiral, whether that be a spiral into a negative or a spiral upward into a positive. And so you can change your thoughts, you can change your beliefs, and that can ultimately completely change how you feel and what you do, and ultimately change the results that you get, which is literally the vision that you want to have, and you set the goals to get different results. And so that's what we're talking about here. So we often have many bad belief systems because our beliefs are formed through repeated thoughts. So we typically have different thoughts from different experiences in life. We learn things from other people, other experiences. Hopefully we learn things from other people having problems rather than having to learn it the hard way. But if you're like me, oftentimes you had to learn, well, the hard way. But the beliefs that we have being formed from these repeated thoughts, and the only reason they hold any weight is because we've really decided that it's true, or we've agreed that they are accurate. And so we tend to believe a lot of negative things about ourselves, or bad things about life, or bad things about other people. And whatever those things are, they can be the fuel that determines what it is that we do. And we do things that can be destructive, or we do things that are constructive. And ultimately, they create the emotions that we feel, whether we have a very sad or grumpy or fearful or happy life is really determined by these formulas. So I've got a short video describing the happiness formula, which I think is a really powerful analogy that we'll utilize in our mindset. So watch this.
Happiness is in looking at the glass and seeing the truth of the glass, seeing the half full side and being grateful for it, seeing the half empty side and saying, can I do anything about it? And if not, can I accept it? Truly, happiness is not about what the world gives you, how much water is in this glass. Happiness is about what you think about what the world gives you. Happiness is equal to or greater than the difference between the way you see the events of your life and your expectation of what life, of how life should behave, right? So if life meets your expectations, you're happy. We mix two states. One of them is happiness and the other is fun. Happiness is that peaceful contentment feeling of, I like the world as it is right now. Fun is the modern world's replacement of happiness. It's, when I am unable to reach that state of happiness, what I do is I go out on the weekend and I go to a party and boom, 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 and my brain stops thinking. As long as it stops thinking, I think I feel happy. Not because I'm actually in that peaceful state of happiness, but because I suspended my unhappy thoughts. I lost my son all of a sudden, like from having a happy holiday together to losing him was 4 hours. And the question that hit me at the time was, what can I do now to bring him back? And nothing I could have ever done, including locking myself in a room and crying for the rest of my life, could bring him back. And to me, the whole idea was, I can either choose to suffer, or I can choose to sort of accept life as harsh as it has become, and reset, make that the 0 point, and try to make it slightly better than it is today, make it slightly better tomorrow. Wouldn't it be amazing if I can reach out to 10 million people and just give them that message, which, by the way, seems to work.
So it is a pretty potent message, and it's very simple. But if you are unhappy about anything in life, which I can imagine most of us can find something, right? Or there's probably lots of things. Don't think too hard on that for a moment. But the question is then, how do we change? And what can we change? Because there's many things in life that we have zero control over. If you remember the Serenity Prayer, remember to change the things that you can, but certainly accept the things that you cannot change. And you want to seek to have the wisdom to know the difference. But ultimately, there's really two primary variables that we can change. We can either change our current reality, we change, or we change our perception of the current reality, for example. We could change how we look at it. So we could look at a failure as a failure, and it creates a meaning of something negative about me as a person, or I could create a perception that it's just a setback and I just need to change something in my action steps. Or we could change what we expect. We could change our expectations because potentially maybe our expectations are just unrealistic. Maybe that's an unrealistic timeline. Maybe it's an unrealistic goal. There was I think it was a Saturday Night Live sketch called Lowered Expectations. It was just silly, goofy things about lowering expectations in dating. It's like, I would like a, and they list all the wonderful things that they would want in a person. And then ultimately they just lower their expectations enough that, you know what, they just want a person. And so we can lower our expectations or we can raise our expectations and we can move to bigger and greater things. But the point is that you have to either change your expectations of reality to be happy, or you need to change your current reality, or at least change how you're looking at your current reality. And so if you want to change, we need that emotional driving force. And Tony Robbins has some really inspirational just resources and things. But ultimately he said that everything that you do is either to gain pleasure or to avoid pain. So you either chase after something you want or you run away from something that you don't want. And so the harsh reality is that many people will do more to avoid a pain than they will to gain pleasure. And so if that's true, then we may have to take moments and focus on a pain and sit in that emotional, maybe even trauma moment of the pain to give us the fuel to actually move. So my encouragement here is because you're going to have to deal with some pain in life, you cannot avoid fear. You cannot avoid the pain of life completely. It's simply impossible. And nor that I think that's a good idea to try and do. But my encouragement is to suffer the pain of discipline rather than suffer the pain of regret. So really a reflection in life. So if you think about it, what do you want? What are you trying to achieve? What are you seeking after? And so where you are in the next 90 days is where you'll be in the next 5 years if there is not a significant change. So the reality is that you're going to be like in this little picture. They're basically just floating around going in a circle. You're not really getting anywhere or making anything change. So if you're not doing anything different, you're not getting anything different. And so think about it as you move forward in life, and you can kind of focus on what could be moving forward. And so think about it this way. This is a kind of painful drill of focusing on your dreams dying. Instead of focusing on and visualizing all the positive, fluffy, cloud-like, esoteric things that many gurus and places will have you do, is like visualize only good things. But the reality is life can be very harsh. And harsh often is the most powerful instigator of change. That ultimately the obstacle or the pain is the way. That 1 year from now, if you have not changed, will you look the same? Will you be the same weight or worse? Will you be in more debt? What will be the state of your relationships or your marriage? What will it cost you financially? What will it cost you in time? What will happen if you don't correct these things? And it's a powerful thing if you actually spend the time. And this is a drill we've done at various camps where you literally take the moments, you visualize it with as many sensory details as you humanly possibly can. And you look at life now and its struggles and its problems. And then you focus on, what if nothing changes? What if you don't take that step? What if you don't do anything better? What if you don't put in the effort, or you don't start, or you don't do the good things that you want to do, you know you should do, but you haven't been doing? What does it look like 1 year from now? And you sit in that and you visualize that and you think about all of the different facets of life, and you feel the hurt and you feel the pain of that sense of visual of failure, or that sense of pain that that's what life will be or could be. It's kind of a negative focus of a potential life that you don't want at all. And then you project it further. 3 years from now, what will it look like? What about your weight? What about your health? What about your bank account? What about your body? How about your children, your relationships, your business partners, your plans, your whatever your thing is? What does that look like in 3 years from now? How sick will you be 5 years from now? How bad are your relationships? How many things have you blown up again? How broke are you? How poor is your health? Will you literally even be alive 5 years from now if you don't change? And it's a powerful, powerful thing to actually sit in the emotional, guttural depths of pain to then realize that you need to change. Because the reality is, until the pain of staying the same feels greater than the pain of change, then you can't overcome the hump of making that change. So if you can sit in the pain of staying the same and what that creates for your life, just enough to where you feel it big enough to take that first step to change, man, if you could get yourself to do that for this thing, there is no stopping you. And there is nothing that you cannot do. There is no how that can overcome a big enough why. There is no obstacle in front of you that's going to break your progress or getting to your results, or there is nothing that will stand in your way, ultimately. So I'm not going to say it's easy. It absolutely will not be easy. But I'm saying that it will be worth it. It will be hard. Life will be hard. In this world, you will have trouble. That's literally one of the only things that's promised to us. You're not promised a prosperous life. You're promised trouble. Like, yep, I've noticed that happens. So life will be hard. So ultimately, choose which hard you accept as okay in your life. Marriage is hard, but divorce is hard too. Choose your hard. Obesity is hard. Having to carry around extra weight is hard. Being fit is also hard. Choose your hard. Being in debt and having no money to do things is hard. Being financially disciplined is also hard. So choose your hard. Communication can be really hard. Not communicating and not being able to communicate, those are also hard. The reality is that life will never be easy. It will always be hard, but you can choose your hard, so pick wisely. When it comes to our health, the reality is that if you don't take time for your wellness, you will be forced to make time for your illness. Read that again. If you don't make time for your wellness, you will be forced to make time for your illness. So again, make the things that are important to you truly your priority. So when it comes down to it, you need to figure out what's actually going to be motivating to you, whether that be running away from that pain, or whether that be toward a particular pleasure or thing that you want as an outcome. you've got to figure out what works for you. Because what works for me may not work for you, and what works for you may not work for somebody else, and that's okay. You don't need the cliche answers. You need what's actually going to work for you in your life. That's the difference. It's not about somebody else, it's about you. If you have to find what's in your heart and what truly matters for you to be able to accomplish things, to be able to make those changes, to be able to move forward. That's about you and your heart and what matters to you and what gets you moving, what spurs you on, what motivates you, what excites you. That's the focus, and nobody else can make those determinations for you. And that's the challenge: is you have to do the difficult heart work of figuring that out. You may have to stand in the moments of pain to kind of figure that out. You may have to actually go through the risky emotional process of figuring out what maybe you actually do want for the future. Many times people are afraid of success because what does that bring? People are afraid of failure, and we hear that all the time, but sometimes people are even afraid of succeeding because of what else that brings and whatever else that requires of you, and we're afraid of that. And we just sit in the same because certainty is a source of comfort, and that chasing after something new is scary. So you got to figure out what motivates you. And so the reality is that if a person has a big enough why, they can endure almost any how. And in my own life, I've had to cultivate different reasons why to make certain changes. And if you knew me whenever I was younger, you would have known that my diet was terrible. It was like pizzas and cheese and crackers because I was ultra picky. If anything was green, it was not going in my mouth except maybe Skittles. And so it was just not a good sight. My cherry Coke addiction was going strong. Even when I was in class, learning about aspects of health and in nutrition class with my cherry Coke sitting in front of my laptop taking notes, which is a bit ironic and kind of funny. So currently I'm drinking a cherry cola Zevia. And so, man, I wish those things existed back when I had to try and give up cherry Coke for the first time. Because lateral moves are so much easier than doing the vertical hard work moves of just flat cutting the bad things or adding in the good things. But some things happened in my life that I began to see the possible negative outcomes of my future. And I remember my uncle going through some health problems, and he had colon cancer. And I remember one time he came to visit, and he just looked really kind of sickly and thin and pale, and then it wasn't too much longer after that they found the cancer, and then it wasn't too long after that he had passed away, and he had passed away in my mind way too young. He had kids. And they were of just kind of getting into adulthood kind of age, where none of them had gotten married yet or had kids yet, and they had so much more life to live that he simply never got to be a part of, and they didn't get a chance to have their daddy. And whenever my son was born, I wanted to make sure that he had a chance to have his daddy, because some other kind of destructive things in my own life is that I didn't have my daddy around a whole lot for other various and personal challenges and things that he dealt with. That struck really deeply with me. And so for me in my life, it was very, very important to be the daddy for my little boy. And so I remember contemplating those things. And I'm holding my little boy in my arms. He was maybe 3 or 4 months old. Little bitty dude. Super cute little guy. Loved him. And I couldn't even fathom like how much I loved this little kid. And then I began to reflect on my life and realize that I'm going to have to do some hard work here. I'm going to have to change. My physical activity level was nothing. My diet was cherry Coke and chicken fingers exclusively almost. And there was, I mean, gosh, if I had projected my future, type 2 diabetes was going to happen. heart disease was going to happen. I looked at my family history. I looked at my current actions. There was no no bets, no bones about it. It was headed that direction if I didn't change. And the last thing I want is to leave this world too soon for my son, or to go through just a horrific amount of loss of life. There's not much sadder than being there, seeing life pass you by, but not being able to live it. When you don't have the energy to play with your kids, or you don't have the physical capacity to get up and walk around, or to pick them up and to hug them. And I started thinking forward to grandchildren. And I'm like, I don't want to miss out on those things. I don't want to be gone, and I don't want to suffer, and I don't want to be the one who has to sit in the chair and not be able to get up and do things. I want to be able to run on the beach with my grandkids and have them say, "Granddaddy, slow down." I want to be that capable, that energetic, and I want to be there for them, and I want to be able to give them the wisdom of life from all of the pain and suffering and the junk and the joys through the things that I've learned, and I want to be able to pass that on to the next generations. And so that's my reason why. And so many other things that I've seen people suffer through in their own health has cultivated a passion in me to learn as much as I possibly can and to share things in a unique way and to change so much about what I think living a healthy life is, because I didn't grow up in this natural health world. This was all brand new to me at one point. Like, being healthy and pursuing healthy lifestyle is probably brand new to some of you now, as well as may have been brand new to some of you just a year or two ago. And when you begin to realize that it makes a massive difference what you do, then you begin to make that journey of change. And I want to help you along that journey. I want to encourage you, and I want to give you some advice from the things that I've learned working with myself in my own life and family, and working with patients for well over a decade now. And so many things people give up on. They just don't realize how powerful simple changes can be to make just an incredible impact in their lives. I've seen disease reversals. I've seen medications that people don't need anymore as they get healthy enough. I've seen people who weren't able to walk. I've seen some just crazy, almost miracle stories that, man, sometimes, like, even just some of the simplest things about adjusting and a headache goes away, or sinuses start draining immediately, or things like that. And it almost feels like, or looks like, magic. But it's really not. It's biology, but it is very powerful. If we can understand just how powerful our actions can be to make change in our own lives, but not only that, but to be able to grow and change, but to contribute to others, to take others alongside you on that journey and help them in their lives as well. To be able to contribute is one of the most fulfilling things in life. So, man, if you've learned something here, share that with others. If you've made some progress, share that with others, and you just may inspire them to be able to make change in their own lives whenever they begin to see that, you know what, if they can do it, maybe I can too, that it is possible. And so ultimately, if a person has a big enough why, they can endure almost any how to make some powerful things change in their life. Habakkuk 2:1 says, "And the Lord answered me, write the vision, make it plain on tablets." Now, I don't know if they were talking about iPads at that point, but you can write it down on your tablet now in a different kind of way. But write out the vision that you have, that if you've got something that you want to accomplish, or you feel that God's called you to do in your life, man, make that real. Write it out. Get it as vivid and real as you possibly can. And then you start making that plan, and then you get to work. And there are so many strategies we could go in through here, but ultimately, whatever you want to accomplish in life, or however you want to experience life, the kind of life that you want, all begins with maximizing your mindset. And if you need some help or some direction or a little coaching in that, just ask. We would love to be able to encourage you, to help you, maybe to tell you some stories of someone else who's already overcome what you're chasing after. Maybe overcome the same struggles that you are. Maybe they can be an inspiration to you and we can literally get you connected with them. Whatever it is, we want to help you out on your journey and want you to have an amazing and blessed life. And we pray for you guys every time we get together and huddle before the shift. I want you to know that we care about you and we really do want to help you in the best possible way that you can. I hope you guys can benefit from this. Share it with somebody else if it was an encouragement. I pray that you have a wonderful and blessed day.